to you here. We are just learning that Colorado Governor Jared Polis has granted clemency to 26-year-old Rogel Aguilera Medeiros, who was given a 110-year prison sentence for an explosive and fiery crash on an interstate that killed 4 people in suburban Denver. The move by Polis comes as a state district attorney asked the judge Monday of this week to consider reducing his sentence following public outcry from around the country and among truckers, with around 5 million people signing an online.
So that's great news, right? 110 years down to 10 years. That's some good news. Well, there's a guy in Pueblo actually got like 5 or 7 years. I think he was sentenced higher, but eventually his real sentence after parole, good behavior for a murder was only like 5 to 7 years. So it's going to be reduced down to 10 years. So I guess Rogel's going to be hanging out with James Holmes and Terry Nichols and Julian Assange. So 10 years and then parole in 4 years. So 10 years sentence, the 110 down to 10 years. I guess they don't have to do that resentencing here no more. And 110 fucking years, 110 years. So that's some good news. Finally, right? We got some good news for once, in our lives. So let's take our time and smell the roses.
He is commuting his sentence to 10 years and granting him parole eligibility on December the 30th, 2026. I want to read in part from a statement put out by the governor. He says, quote, "I believe you deserve clemency for several reasons. You were sentenced to 110 years in prison, effectively more than a life sentence for a tragic but unintentional act. While you are not blameless, your sentence is disproportionate compared with many other inmates in our criminal justice system who committed intentional, premeditated, or violent crimes." Now, around 5 million people signed an online petition seeking to grant him clemency.
Like James Holmes. James Holmes is in the, Colorado jail system. Terry Nichols in the Colorado jail system. James Holmes, Terry Nichols, Unabomber, shoot bomber, underwear bomber. A lot of terrorists.
Vehicular homicide and other charges in that explosive wreck that killed 4 people back.
He was charged with a crime of violence, so the mandatory minimum was 10 years on those assault charges, but incredibly, the vehicular homicide charge is not a crime of violence. Run somebody over. Suge Knight ran a man over. Run a man over, kill him. You get charged with vehicular manslaughter, and you'll have to serve time for that charge, but you won't have to serve time for a crime of violence.
In 2019, he testified that he was hauling lumber when the brakes on his semi-truck failed as he was descending a steep grade of I-70 in the Rocky Mountain foothills. And you remember, I remember that very, very well, that crash there on I-70 that left 4 people dead. Others, many were injured in that event.
So there you go, Jared Polis. Since he's not merciful, is Jared Polis not merciful? Now, wow, that's some good news. There's some bad news. You got that King Soopers shooter, that Ahmed Assisi something, the 21-year-old Syrian American who in Boulder, Colorado, who killed 10 people. He took 10 lives off this planet because they went to King Soopers, the shop, and for some reason that just pissed this guy off. And they're going to tell you that he got 100 charges. So he's got 100 charges, right? But he's going to bypass the entire criminal justice, the criminal justice, okay, the criminal procedure, and they're going to send him to Pueblo State Hospital. Why? Because 4 doctors deemed him incompetent to stand trial. Incompetent to stand trial. He was competent to, have all these conversations and do all these deeds and shit. So, incompetent. So therefore, 100 charges, right? 100 charges
Down 10 people was
down to 0.
Ahmad Alisa faces more than 100 criminal charges, including 10 counts of first-degree murder.
So not guilty by reason of insanity.
Not competent. Judge is now sending him to a state hospital down in Pueblo for further treatment. So what is competency? Is it different than sanity?
And when could the suspect go to trial? Tonight, Denver 7 CB Cotton is digging into this process and finding out what comes next as families wait for.
So they're going to Pueblo State Hospital and medication. They're going to sit there and say he's going to go to the hospital and he's going to get competent, okay? He's going to get the, breathing exercises, meditation, all the things that he needs, and he's going to get medicated to competency. Is that how competency works? Well, we're going to medicate him to being a superb citizen, and then we're going to bring him back into trial, and then we're going to finally get some goddamn justice.
9 months ago, the everyday task of just going to the grocery store turned into a collective heartache that has lasted every day since.
That beautiful young woman right there won't get the chance at life.
Back in October, the family of Ricky Olds, who tragically died in the King Soopers shooting, spoke with Denver 7 after learning that the suspect had been ruled incompetent to stand trial.
He was pretty competent when he went and bought a gun. Pretty competent when he drove to King Soopers. Pretty competent when he surrendered to the police.
Now, nearly 2 months and another evaluation later, a judge has ruled the suspect is incompetent once again.
This is actually the third evaluation that he's had. He was evaluated by a defense expert, then he was evaluated by 2 doctors from the state hospital, and then he was most recently evaluated by a doctor who we helped select.
A total of 4 doctors over the past 3 months, but not a single one of them has deemed the case ready to move forward. Legal experts say there's a simple reason why.
Competency, huh? Looks like he can walk and chew gum. Looks like he can talk to the prosecutors and do whatever he needs to.
Under the Constitution, is that a defendant can't be put through the criminal trial process unless he is fit to understand the proceedings against him and assist in his own defense.
The suspect will now receive treatment at a state hospital in Pueblo, where doctors will provide updates on his condition every 30 days.
Treated with therapy and possibly medications, and comes into a state of competency.
How long will that take? There's no timetable. All we know is Friday's update will delay the case by at least 3 months.
Either the defendant in the case is going to be found competent and will stand trial, which is probably what's most likely to happen, or the defendant will continue in a state of incompetency and be detained up to the maximum term of the charges against him.
On Friday, the suspect's defense attorney said her client has a serious mental illness, but we don't know details beyond that. For now, those who lost loved ones during the shooting face everyday agony.
I mean, I think the longer a trial like this drags on and the more notices you get, and, if it's years after the fact, I think it is hard to sort of move on.
We know there's a process, and we know it could be years. But it doesn't make it any easier.
CB Cotton, Denver 7.
And it's not just the families of the King Soopers victims waiting for justice. The man charged with killing 3 people at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs has yet to go to trial. Since that 2015 shooting, Robert Deere has been found incompetent to stand trial for the state charges multiple times. And then in September, Deere was also found incompetent to stand trial on the federal charges.
And the months following the Boulder shooting have been difficult for the survivors and loved ones of the victims, and that's led to the creation of the Boulder Strong Resource Center. It's a safe place for those impacted by the shooting to go and get help.
2015, motherfucker shot and killed people. 6 years later, he was mentally incompetent. I guess, I don't know. Is evil crazy? I think it's crazy to choose evil. So clearly an evil act is a crazy act. But this is shenanigans. This is a bunch of bullshit. Motherfucker shot Planned Parenthood because he truly believed that they were killing lives. So he thought that he was doing, God's work and shit. And then this guy, who knows what the hell, he's got a mental condition. What? He's got anxiety. He's got operant defiant disorder. Has he got some ADHD? What's he need? Some goddamn Oxycontin? He's facing trial probably to be thrown into jail for the rest of his life, or, maybe the death penalty. They say that in Colorado, the death penalty is de facto, bunk because of James Holmes. But the death penalty is still here in Colorado, especially since you got that George Brockler, running his fucking mouth. So there you go, motherfucker. I mean, this is some bullshit. Rogel, right? He's going to go to jail immediately. 10 years, better than 110. That's much better. But you got that piece of shit that went into the fucking Planned Parenthood, hood, killed what, 5, 6 people. Then you got this motherfucker killed 10 people at a goddamn grocery store. And they're not mentally competent, so we're not going to get any justice. The criminal justice system is completely powerless now. Well, shit. What do we pay our damn taxes for?